all, I would like to apologize for the delay. Now I'm going to present this today's topic on solar assisted heat pumps for drying, desalination, and water heating. So the screen is visible.
Yes, sir. It is visible. You can make it slideshow mode.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yes, sir. Fine.
Okay, so today we are going to have a presentation on solar assisted heat pumps for drying, desalination, and water heating applications. So as far as this topic is concerned, it is heat pump is one of the very interesting and equipment which is especially for heating applications, which is meant for drying, desalination, and water heating. And the drying is one of the very essential component in for preserving the food and to reduce the moisture content in the food products, and also for to increase the storage period. So to increase the life of the food products, we need to keep the moisture content of the product as minimum as possible. And it is we have to for that we have to go for drying. And there are different drying modes it is available. Out of all those things, heat pump drying is one of the energy efficient and it is an it will produce very good quality products because of it is maintained in a controlled atmosphere. So for that reason, we are going to have a the heat pump drying, and also we are going having the desalination applications also. So the heat pump is can be widely used for desalination also. So for purifying the water. So because nowadays the desalination can be used for both cooling and heating sites, both the evaporator and condenser sites are can be used for one for heating and for cooling. So that is also possible. So and for water heating also, it is nowadays the heat pump water heaters are coming up in India. So because of its energy efficient, because heat pumps can deliver more heat output than the work input it takes for pressurizing the refrigerant. So that these are some of the advantages of using heat pumps, especially for heating applications. And in for India, and I'm not in position to carry out the space heating applications, but in associate with Al Farabi Kazakhstan National University, we have done a lot of research and development activities of heat pumps for space heating applications, room space heating applications, because the Kazakhstan is facing a very low temperature of around minus 20 up to minus 20 in the case of Almaty, and we are it is very essential to have a it is very essential to have a good energy efficient heating system. That energy efficient heating system will provide a comfort room temperature, so to maintain the temperature of around 25 degrees centigrade, and also to meet the domestic hot water requirements. So we have developed some heat pump water heaters for Kazakhstan climatic conditions also. And sometimes we may have the is having a north part of Kazakhstan, particularly in Astana, is having a very low temperature of around minus 35 degrees centigrade. For such type of applications, for such type of ambient conditions, we are also developed a cascade heat pump systems to so there is a two heat pumps which are integrated together in series, and that is called a cascade heat pump, and to produce the hot water at a temperature of 60 to 65 degrees centigrade, even at a temperature of minus 30 or minus 35 degrees centigrade, up to minus 40 degrees centigrade, that heat pump will produce a 60-degree temperature. So such type of investigations, theoretical and experimental investigations have been carried out for the climatic conditions of Kazakhstan. And now I'm going to have a very brief information about especially the solar assisted heat pumps for drying, desalination, and water heating alone in this presentation. So this is the outline of presentation. It starts with the heat pump introduction, different configurations, cycles, heat pump dryers, different case studies, and how to improve the performance of solar assisted heat pumps, some applications for desalination and for water heating, and for the various refrigerant options for the heat pumps, and the major research outcomes, reference, and publications. So, this is the major outline of the presentation. So, first, we should understand why we go for heat pumps. Why we go for heat pumps? The heat pumps have been identified as an energy efficient device because of its capability of delivering more heat output than work input it takes for compression. Normally, for example, if you considering a 1 kilowatt heat pump, 1 kilowatt heat pump means 1 kilowatt rated electricity input power for a compressor. The 1 kilowatt heat pump it consumes 1 kilowatt of electricity, and it is capable of delivering more than 3 to 4 kilowatt of heat output. So that is an advantage. So 1 kilowatt of electricity is converted into 3 to 4 kilowatt of heat output. So whereas in the any other electrical systems, the 1 kilowatt is converted into zero point 0.8 kilowatt or 0.75 or zero point 0.8, maximum 0.85 kilowatt is possible. Whereas the heat pump is capable of delivering more heat output. So the heat pump is capable of delivering more heat output. So it is if you are giving 1 kilowatt heat electricity input, 1 kilowatt electricity input, that electricity 1 kilowatt is converted into 3 to 4 kilowatt of heat output. So that means that heat delivery is more than the electricity input it takes for pressurizing the refrigerant. So that is a major benefit we are observing in heat pump. So that is the reason, and most of the cold climatic conditions, there is a continental climatic conditions, they are preferring heat pumps for space heating and for other applications. Even in India, in India for water heating, it is one of the very interesting equipment for water heating applications. But in most part of the India, we are having a temperature of around, it's a comfort temperature of around 20 plus. So we doesn't require much heating. But in spite of all those things, but we need some heating demand for drying and for water heating applications. And desalination still it is in a research level, but there is no commercial product available in the heat pump assisted desalination systems. So um, so considering all these things, all these points, the heat pump as an identified as one of the energy efficient equipment, especially for heating applications, which heating requirements in drying, space heating, water heating, desalination, and also even for some other special type of applications, also even for maintaining the temperature of some industrial applications like paint booth. Paint booth we may require a temperature of 60 degrees centigrade. For that, we need some heat pump heating system. So some paint booth they may have some electrical resistance arrangements to maintain the temperature. Whereas if you are using heat pump, it is possible to maintain the temperature in an energy efficient way. So it is that for that such type of applications, it is we can go for a heat pump. And this heat pumps, the performance can be significantly improved by integrating with some renewable energy sources like solar thermal collectors and solar photovoltaic thermal collectors, and even to geothermal heat exchangers. And solar and geothermal heat exchangers also it is possible to integrate with the heat pump so that we can improve the performance significantly. So such type of investigations have been carried out throughout the world, which I have consolidated in a review paper. So I'll show it in the end of this presentation. I have published two review papers exclusively on solar assisted heat pumps. So in that heat paper, I have consolidated a exhaustive review work. So I hope I'll show it in the end. And the geothermal heating, whereas when comparing to solar, geothermal energy integration is more expensive because of initial investment. Because you need to spend more money to invest to install the geothermal heat exchangers. So that is very difficult, and it's more expensive when comparing to solar. And moreover, in tropical climatic conditions like India, we have enough in solar energy resources. So why, if we have enough solar energy resources, the going for geothermal is meaningless, especially for Indian climatic conditions, especially the tropical climatic conditions. So it is better. What I suggested for Indian climatic conditions, it is better to go for geothermal, to go for solar thermal applications. And if we want to generate some amount of electricity, so why not we can use some photovoltaic panels, so that we can cool the photovoltaic panel to improve the energy efficiency of the photovoltaic panels, and also we can generate some amount of electricity. Plus, we can generate the hot water, or you can generate the heat output in a form of hot air for drying. So there is such possibilities also there. So it is better to have some renewable energy integration, especially like solar or geothermal or some other solar geothermal hybrid concept. Whereas if we go to continental climatic conditions like Almaty, the solar energy availability is very minimum. So in such cases, it is very essential. It is very essential to go for hybrid mode, or maybe go for geothermal mode. So such things we need. But for Indian climatic conditions, it is a very quite unnecessary. And hence, the more research and developments have been focused on solar-assisted heat pumps when comparing to the geothermal heat pumps. So these are some of the heat pump configurations which we are reported in open literature. I also tried with this type of configurations. This is a conventional heat pump having a solar circuit is there, a heat pump circuit is there. Both solar circuit and heat pump circuits are integrated together with the help of intermediate heat exchanger. The solar energy harvested in the solar collector, it is observed and it will be transferred to this intermediate heat exchanger. From this intermediate heat exchanger, the heat is transferred to the condenser through the compressor. So here some percentage of temperature enhancement is possible. Here further enhancement is taking place here. So this is a conventional type of solar assisted heat pump. Here it is having some limitations because we are using some water or anti-freezing solution that may have a separate pump is required. Then, but this is the only choice when if we go for a very big systems like if we having the suppose if the evaporator suppose if the collector area is more than 4 meters square, then it is better to go for this type of conventional heat pump systems rather than a direct expansion. So this is another type of heat pump which is having a direct expansion type where the refrigerant is directly expanded in the solar collector for absorbing the heat. So when comparing to this is very simple, but it is a capacity limitation is there. So if the collector area is up to 4 meters square, we can go for solar direct expansion solar collectors, because if the collector area is more, and there will be more pressure drop occurring in this solar collector after in the refrigeration system. This more pressure drop will make more pressure ratio in the compressor. If the pressure ratio is increasing, automatically the volumetric efficiency has dropped. So this all put together, the COP of the system is totally gets collapsed if you are using a more than 4 meters square area. So for such applications, we can, if it is a 6 meters square, if it is a 10 meters square, or if it is a 12 meters square, it is better to go for a conventional type solar circuit separately, heat pump circuit separately. Both are integrated with the help of intermediate heat exchanger. From here we can tap the heat output for any applications, drying, water heating, space heating, or any type of applications. And now another further research and development that made as the photovoltaic thermal evaporators. This photovoltaic thermal evaporator, it consists of instead of having the solar collector, thermal collector, they're having the PV panels. These PV panels, bottom side of this PV panel is having evaporator tubes. So these evaporator tubes is capable of absorbing the heat which is generated during the energy conversion process of the photovoltaic panel. So that the photovoltaic panel efficiency can be significantly improved. At the same time, we can utilize the cooling effect effectively for cooling these photovoltaic panels. So this type of configurations is also coming up nowadays to generate some amount of electricity, and to make this heating system as a more self-sustainable one without depending upon the grid electricity. And this is the some hybrid configurations. So there's a solar and geothermal hybrid configurations. This is a vertical type geothermal heat pump. This is a vertical type geothermal heat pump which integrates the solar and geothermal energy. Is both together, which is integrated with this evaporator of a heat pump. From here, it is pumped to the condenser. So this type of things are. This is a horizontal type geothermal heat exchanger. So this is a horizontal type geothermal heat exchanger, and this is also here it is having the some photovoltaic thermal evaporator is there. Here it is a solar thermal evaporator, and here the PVT evaporator with geothermal heat exchanger is there. And here we are integrating the photovoltaic thermal evaporator and wind turbine, this both together, and it will generate both the wind turbine and photovoltaic thermal evaporator both will generate the electricity which is given to the inverter. From the inverter converts this DC output into AC output, and it can be feedback to the compressor. So it is a completely, it is a this type of systems are self-sustained one to generate the electricity throughout the day. During daytime, the solar panel will generate electricity, and during nighttime, wind turbine is generating electricity. Or otherwise, the electricity generated by both the panel, it is convert and electricity, and it will be given to the grid. And from the grid, for example, the heat pump is requires 10 units of electricity per day. Both wind turbine and PV panel generates enough electricity, and it give it to the grid. From the grid, we can tap the electricity at free of cost. So such type of configurations are nowadays it's coming up, and here it is also this geothermal also integrated. So wind, solar, and geothermal. So these three renewable energies are integrated together for generating this electricity and also for generating the heat for the operating the heat pump. Okay. So these are some of the heat pump cycles. So these are the very interesting heat pump cycles, which are commonly we are using it in heat pump applications. And here in this case, it is a two-stage heat pumps. So even Raj, is my voice audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. If you're having any problem, please call me.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Okay. And this is a heat pumps cycles, and here it is a two-stage heat pump. This nowadays this industrial requirement, but for domestic and commercial requirement, the temperature is around requirement is around 60 degrees centigrade. Suppose if it is an industrial requirements, for example, for a tea leaf drying, and also for cardamom drying, we require a temperature of around 85 to 90 degrees centigrade. For such type of applications, we require a temperature of 80 to 85 degrees centigrade, and also for textile applications, we require 85 degrees centigrade. For such applications, it is single stage heat pumps are not possible. The single stage heat pumps can capable of lifting the temperature up to 30 to 40 degrees centigrade. Maximum with loss of some capacity, we can achieve maximum 50 degree. Suppose if ambient temperature is 25 degrees centigrade, we can get the temperature of around 65 degrees centigrade only. But such temperature is not sufficient to meet the requirement for the some industrial requirements. So such applications we can go for a two-stage heat pumps. So this is a two-stage heat pump configuration. The same fluid can be used. So one same refrigerant is used in these two stages. So this is a one case. Here in this case, R134A is commonly used in this heat pumps. So the R134A is using in this two-stage heat pump, because why we are choosing means the R134A is having a boiling point of minus 25 degrees centigrade and a critical temperature of 106 degrees centigrade. So this heat pump is can comfortably work up to the temperature of 90 degrees centigrade. Up to the temperature of 90 degrees centigrade, there will be no more performance degradation. So for such applications, it is very essential to have this type of two-stage heat pumps. Even if you refer any website of a heat pump manufacturers, because the China is manufacturing a lot of heat pumps, especially for industrial applications like sludge drying, and for some industrial heating applications, they are having a manufacturing lot of heat pumps. So for such manufacturers, they are having the two-stage compressors. They're having a two-stage compressors. They're using some unique working fluid, which is having a very high critical temperature. The refrigerant selection, I'm going to give it at the end of this presentation. So how to select the refrigerant for a particular heating applications? I will explain. So this is one two-stage heat pump, and this is the another type of heat pump, which is having a this is a cascade heat pump configuration. In this case of cascade heat pump, we are having this the different compressors. So two different two refrigeration systems which are integrated together. So two refrigeration systems which are integrated together with the help of this cascade condenser or the cascade condenser. So this consists of the two. This consists of the two vapor compression cycles that are connected in series. Two vapor compression cycles that are connected in series, and this is a low temperature side. This is a high temperature side, and this is from here the heat output is utilized for space heating applications. Here, in this case, two different. Yes, yes. Hello.
Sir,
Hello.
sir, you can proceed. No issues.
Okay. Okay. So here the two different refrigerants we are using. One refrigerant with a low boiling point and another refrigerant with high boiling point. So here, in this case, for the low temperature circuit, we may require very low boiling point refrigerant, and with low critical temperature is okay. And for the high temperature side, we may require a high refrigerant which is having a very high critical temperature, and the boiling point may be slightly higher. So here, in this case, this circuit is maintained between minus 35. Suppose if the ambient temperature is minus 35 degrees centigrade, then minus 35 to 0, we have one stage. From 0 to 30 or from 0 to 50, we have another stage. So these are two stages which we can be integrated together, and in the two different refrigeration systems. One refrigeration system is having a low boiling point and uh, low critical temperature, and another is having a maybe having a higher boiling point and higher critical temperature, so that it's possible to get maximum temperature around around 70 to 80 degrees centigrade. So this is also possible to have for some space heating applications, especially for low temperature applications. So for low temperature ambient conditions. Okay, then this is the auto cascade heat pumps. This is the auto cascade heat pump which we have this. We are using geotropic working fluids. So somebody is please mute the mic. So somebody is creating disturbance. Please mute your mic.
Dr. Santanu Datta, your mic is on. Please mute.
Okay, so this is the auto cascade heat pump cycle, and which is consist of this is a auto cascade heat pump. Normally, we are preferring a geotropic working fluid. In this case, we are having the geotropic working fluid, but to achieve the very high temperature, more than 50 degrees centigrade, with the minimum loss of capacity, here only one compressor. So this cascade compressor, we have the more two compressors. Here we need only one compressor. So for this, we need a geotropic working fluids. The geotropic working fluid, the refrigerant, geotropic refrigerant consists of it's a binary or maybe a ternary refrigerant mixture. If it is a binary, we can go for two-stage auto cascade. If it is a ternary, means we can go for three-stage auto cascade system. In such case, we can produce up to that based on the refrigerant mixture composition. Based on the refrigerant mixture composition, we can decide the how much temperature we can possible. So, for example, if your refrigerant mixture is consist of the one having a high boiling point, another is having a low boiling point, and the low boiling point is preferred for low temperature stage, and high boiling point is preferred for the high temperature stage. So such type of auto cascade heat pump cycle. So we are also recently we are receiving a research funding from Ministry of Higher Education, Republic of Kazakhstan, do this collaborative research project in associate with Satpav University, Almaty. So this research work is going on. So based on some numerical results we have done, and further we are doing some experimental development, experimental setup development, that our work is also going on for this, especially for this auto cascade heat pump, especially for space heating in low ambient conditions. And this one is a transcritical cycle. It's a very interesting one. This is only made for the refrigerants having a very low critical temperature, especially for carbon dioxide is identified as the one of the very low temperature. It's a very low critical temperature refrigerant. It consists of these basic components as like this one, but here we have the expander and here we have the gas cooler. So this gas cooler is used to here the transcritical cycle. So this is called a transcritical cycle. The meaning of transcritical cycle is the above so half of this operation is happening above the critical temperature, and this half is happening below the critical temperature. So this portion is happening above the critical temperature. That's why it is called critical cycle. So at the exit of this condenser, it's not a condenser, it is a gas cooler. At the exit of this gas cooler, the refrigerant is in the gaseous state. So the refrigerant is in the gaseous state. So that's why it is called a gas cooler. So such this type of solar resisted heat pumps are also used in low temperature ambient conditions, because the um, uh, transcritical heat pumps cannot be used in using carbon dioxide. It cannot be used in high temperature applications, because at high temperature it is very difficult. At high temperature, it is very difficult. There will be more performance degradation. There will be more. There will be more performance degradation. So there will be more performance degradation at a very high temperatures. So it is very essential to control to get the maximum performance. It is better to operate this type of heat pumps only at low ambient conditions. And now I'm going to discuss about this heat pump dryers. So now we come to the heat pump dryer. The thermal drying, as everybody knows, the thermal drying is one of the energy intensive process in the food industries, because thermal energy is it is a very low grade energy, and it is because of that it is a more energy intensive process. And the heat pump dryers are identified as the energy efficient equipment because of its ability to produce more high quality products with less energy consumption. So that is the reason the heat pump dryers are identified as an energy efficient equipment, and also it's capable of producing very high quality products. So that's two reasons we are identified these heat pumps as a good option. And here in this case, the effective control of temperature is possible, and the drying rate is possible. Control drying rate is possible, and the airflow rate is also possible to maintain consistently. So such advantages is possible in the case of heat pump dryer. And then to improve its performance, as I already said, solar and ambient heat pumps, ambient heat energies. Solar and ambient energy can be possible to integrate with the heat pump systems through the solar collector and fin tube heat exchangers. And many research have been developed on heat pump dryers for processing these agricultural materials. And this common conclusion is that the heat pump dryers are energy efficient and capable of producing high quality food products. So this is my experimental setup I developed for testing, developed for drying of coconuts. So this is a heat pump. This is a conventional the ambient source heat pump, which consists of basic components: compressor, condenser, expansion valve, and evaporator. And in addition, we have some accessories like a side glass and receivers. These things we are installed, and this is the dryer cabin we are used for loading these products to be dried. So this is the condenser, and this is the compressor, and this is an ambient source evaporator. And so this heat pump we can utilize it for producing producing the hot air, and for drying the products like cocoa. And we are tested, and similarly, and we are further the performance enhancement we are made. So this heat pump system I integrated with the solar collector. So this is the further enhancement. This is initially I developed the system. After they developed the system, then I can integrate this solar collector. This is a solar collector I integrated. This is a solar collector I integrated. This is a 2 meter solar air collector. I integrated with this heat pump to improve its performance. So this is a we have done this experiment in an open environment. It is an open environment to uh, with the help of solar collectors. And so these are some of the specifications of this system, and it is conventionally it is a hermetically sealed compressor, and it is having the rated power input of 1020 watts, and we are using R22. So this was done 10 years back. So at that time, R22 was one of the very good refrigerant because of its good thermophysical and thermodynamic characteristics for heating applications. And we are using a thermostatic expansion wall, and we have the glass tube solar collector and of 2 meter square area. So these are some of the experimental observations I observed. In this case, this is the solar intensity and ambient temperature and condenser outlet temperature we are observed at typical conditions. And here, this is the solar intensity and this is an ambient temperature, the temperature at the inlet and outlet of the condenser. And the drying was carried out for the 2 days consecutively, and the ambient wind velocity and ambient relative humidity was observed because the ambient relative humidity is highly influencing this drying rate. And we are observed this COP and heating capacity in this graph. So the COP was observed in the range between 2.3 and maximum value of 2.7, 2.75. So we are observed, and this heating capacity was varied between the 2750 and it is varied between 3700. So this is the range of heating capacity we are observed in this system. And this moisture rate, in the initial moisture content on wet basis of, for a copra, it is around 52 percentage. So the 52 percentage initial moisture content was reduced to 7 to 8 percentage, 7 to 8 percentage, but the 7 percentage is an equilibrium moisture content of a copra, but achieving 7% is not possible. Achieving 7 percentage equilibrium moisture content is not possible in any drying mode. But if possible, if we even if possible, we can achieve 7 percentage. But when it is but the product will retrieve the moisture when it is exposed to the ambient condition. So the equilibrium moisture content is okay, but the achieving that equilibrium moisture content is somewhat is difficult. So using this conventional drying methods. So here we are achieved up to I think up to 8 percentage. We are reduced this moisture content. And here, in this case, we are comparing this drying with the conventional solar drying systems. So this is a solar drying system, conventional solar drying system used for copra drying, and we also published few papers on this one also. And here also we are this products to be load, and we are heating the air when the air is pumping through this solar air collector, and when it is passing through this solar air collector, it carves the roughly it carves the around 2 kilowatt of heat. It's possible to observe from the in the solar collector, and we can when it is air is passing through this one, the moisture is extracted from the products and it will be take out from this through this outlets. So here we are using a 0.5 HP blower. 0.5 HP blower is utilized for running these experiments. And here, this is another tunnel dryer. This tunnel dryer concept is more normally we are adopted in most places in Coimbatore and in most part of the Coimbatore district for processing the coconut. But the problem is during the night time, during the cloudy time, the heating is not possible. So for such time, such duration, it is very essential to heat the product. For that, we are integrated the heat pump systems. So we are suggested to integrate a heat pump, install a heat pump system for inside the tunnel dryer to maintain the higher temperature, so that deabsorption, because during morning 7 is a morning 9 o'clock to evening 6 o'clock, there will be drying will be more effective. But after 6 o'clock, after 6 to 8, 9, there will be the effect of heat storage during the sunshine hours that maybe have released some amount of heat inside the tunnel, and maintain higher temperature. But after 10 o'clock, there may be a chance of cooling. So during that period, the moisture evaporated from this product may be stagnated inside this tunnel, and they have a chance to get condensed, and it will be falls down over the products. So because of that, there will be a problem of deabsorption of moisture. There will be a problem of deabsorption of moisture. So the deabsorption of moisture has created deabsorption of moisture as creating a lot of problems. So a lot of problems means that will create the moisture content of the product has been increased by 5% to 10%. So it will be a big problem we are facing in the tunnel dryers. So why not we can install a heat pump? Why not we can install a heat pump for such applications to maintain higher temperature than the outside? At least we can maintain the ambient temperature. If you are maintaining the ambient temperature same inside this one, there will be no moisture condensation. So for that, we are suggesting a heat pump. So I suggested with some resistance valve. Then a 100 watts bulb, we are installing a 10 100 watts bulbs inside this tunnel that will create 1 kilowatt of heat output. That 1 kilowatt heat output definitely will have enhance the temperature of the tunnel, so that will maintain the temperature inside this tunnel. So, but it's not an energy efficient. So for that reason, I suggest a heat pump to improve this. Uh, I suggest the heat pump so to maintain the higher temperature around equal to the ambient temperature, so that there will be no condensation of the moisture. So it was tested and it was successfully it was observed that the moisture deabsorption was can be significantly avoided. And this is another very interesting concept which we are explored for the continental climatic conditions like Kazakhstan. And they're having these food products to be dried. So in Kazakhstan, they're having food products to be dried during a winter season. And for summer season also, they needs to be dried. Some products like banana. So they're having the banana that needs to be dry. And sometimes they also need some greenhouses because for cultivating but many, for example, banana cultivation it's a tropical fruit. It is a tropical fruit which we can cultivate in Indian climatic conditions. For cultivating banana in some continental climatic conditions, it is very difficult, and it is it's more expensive. So because of that, we need to develop some greenhouse, and we need to maintain the temperature artificially. We need to maintain a temperature inside the greenhouse, and that will be more expensive. So for that reason, moreover, it's a seasonal product in Kazakhstan because it is they have in the 6 months, 6 7 months winter and 7 months winter, and they have the 5 months they have winter and 5 months summer and 7 months winter. So they have cultivated this type of banana during the summer, and they can store it for some winter seasons. For that, we need some sophisticated dryer with the control environment. So I integrate solar dryer. This solar dryer integrated with the heat pump because during a summer they're having a very good sunshine, because 14 to 15 hours of sunshine is availability is there in Kazakhstan, whereas in India the length of sunshine is around 10 to 12 hours only. But whereas in Kazakhstan, they're having 15 to sometimes 16 hours is possible. Sunshine availability is there. So even morning of 5 o'clock, we'll get a very good sunshine. And evening up to 9 o'clock, we'll have a good sunshine. So such advantages we can use during the summer. We can harvest the enough solar energy during the during the daytime, and we can run the heat pump during the night time, and so that we can 24 hours it can possible to maintain the higher temperature for the dryer. So I integrated this heat pump system, and I integrated the solar collector both integrated together, and I can during the daytime it harvests the solar energy, and during night time it will be heat pump is utilized for running the system. So this is very similar to this concept, but it is developed for a tunnel dryer. This is developed for a small capacity dryer. So this type of system is I also developed in my laboratory. So this work is in under progress. So I hope within another 6 months I'm trying to develop a very good heat pump assisted solar dryer system in our laboratory. And I think this type of dryers is very essential for to for some high value food crops. So for drying of processing of high value food crops. So I done one simulation work on this particular thing for processing the banana, and we are achieved good results. And these are some of the observations I made. Here is a solar dryer, and for the solar dryer, we observe this is relative humidity and the drying time and the relative humidity and this temperature, these things. So what I'm saying, I give a very general conclusion that uh, for a for a drying applications of for a copra from the initial moisture content of 52 percentage to the final moisture content of 8 percentage, it requires roughly 82 hours in a solar dryer. 82 hours in a solar dryer using sand as a heat storage material. Using sand as a heat storage material. Whereas if you are using a gravel as a heat storage material, we can reduce it to some extent. We can reduce. It will becomes around comes around 66 hours. 66 hours. We can that one day we can reduce. So one day it is possible to reduce. And if you are using a heat pump, we can use. If you are using a heat pump, it may be having a conventional heat pump. We have this 48 hours. If you are using a solar assisted heat pump, it may be having a 40 hours duration. Whereas a solar dryer, it's a solar dryer using sand as a heat storage material, it is a 82 hours. Whereas a gravel as a heat storage material, whereas gravel as a heat storage material here, we are using a gravel, sand, everything. So this is a very this having this enough space to hold this heat storage material. So this is a heat storage material packed here. Here also we can add sand, yeah, what gravel, and even for some other pebbles also we are added and tested. But and also we are used the iron scraps in the path of airflow to enhance this temperature. But it's not possible to store the heat, but it can enhance this temperature. It can it's enhancing the heat absorption. So that's also possible. We are tested. All these things were tested, and we are coming. We are conclude that for copra application, for copra drying applications, solar heat pump assisted dryer is having the 40 hours duration, and heat pump dryer it's a 48 hours duration. For solar dryer, it is 82 hours, and for open sun drying, it is 152 hours. It's very high, and the quality of the product obtained in a solar heat pumps or any type of heat pump, it may be a 93% grade on copra. This grading is based on the Bureau of Indian Standards, and only 7% we get the grade 2 copra, and the grade 3 copra is will not have observed any thing in heat pump dryers. Whereas the solar dryer, we have 76% grade 1 copra and 18% grade 2 copra and 6% grade 3 copra with a drying duration of 82 hours. For an open sun drying, it's a 53% grade 1 and 24% grade 2 and 23% grade 3, and with a drying duration of 152 hours. After all these things, the solar assisted heat pump drying is more expensive, and the heat pump drying is also more expensive, but the quality of product obtained from these two type of drying modes will be more it's very good, and it makes it feasible to go for uh, heat pump dryers. But in general, the copra we can say it's a very low value product. But even though it's a low value product, to obtain high quality, it is very essential to go for some sophisticated dryers. So this is the heat pump assisted solar dryer experiments. It's a numerical study we have done for a Kazakhstan climatic conditions, and for drying of banana for the different climatic conditions I observed. But the countries like Kazakhstan, they have the four major climates. They have the summer, winter, spring, and monsoon. So they have the different climatic conditions. So we are made some numerical simulations. This hybrid configuration will deliver the maximum heat, the outlet temperature of around 50 to 55 degrees centigrade in the hybrid mode. Okay, so the drying temperature for the different conditions. For the different conditions, we are shown this heat pump dryer. The heat pump dryer with solar collector is identified as an energy efficient because of its capability of producing a higher temperature of around 57 to 58 degrees centigrade. Whereas solar dryer is not consistent, the solar dryer will not produce the heat output during the off sunshine hours, and the maximum outlet temperature is around 50 degrees centigrade only. And the moisture content, we are observed that moisture content from the initial moisture content, it is they are made it as I think their initial moisture content, they're having a 78 percentage wet based one, and it will be reduced to 18 percentage if they're during the 17 to 18 hours. So this is specific moisture extraction rate. It is comes around 1.2 kg per kilowatt hour, and it will be falls down to 0.2 kg per kilowatt hour. And for the comparison, they made a very good comparison, and the heat pump dryers are having a was identified as a good energy efficient heat pump assisted solar dryer. Heat pump assisted solar dryer was identified as the good option, especially for continental climatic conditions, because it is possible to trap the solar energy during the daytime, and during the night time they use the heat pumps for producing the heat output. And this common conclusion is that heat pumps are energy efficient due to its ability to deliver more heat output, and the drying time is considerably reduced, and the heat drying process is carried out in a controlled enclosure, so which ensures better product quality. And the drying temperature is possible to maintain consistently in the case of heat pump drying, and the specific moisture extraction rate is improved significantly. So these are the major outcomes we are observed in this first case study. And so these heat pumps are having some drawbacks. The heat pumps are having some drawbacks. So how to improve this performance of these heat pumps? During peak sunshine hours, the volumetric efficiency of the compressor is highly affected because of superheat. So during peak sunshine hours, the volumetric efficiency of the compressors are highly affected because of superheat. So the loss of volumetric efficiency has reduced the condenser heating capacity and coefficient of performance. So that is a major problem. And the excess heat is retained in the solar collector, and it can be used with the help of latent heat storage, and with the help of latent heat storage, it is possible to retain. So with the help of latent heat storage, it is possible to retain some amount of latent heat, so that it is possible to maintain the higher volumetric efficiency in the system. So that possibility is there. So I have done some experimental work. I'm going to project that work also. And the heat pumps deliver the heat output even during the fluctuations in sunshine. So there is also possibilities there. The losses in the solar collector can be significantly reduced, and the consistent heat delivery in the heat pump will be expected even during the fluctuating in the sunshine. So, so I tested with the graphene paraffin wax. The hybrid heat storage was selected as a viable heat storage for the solar collectors. So this is an experimental setup. This is an experimental setup. This is a heat pump with a conventional air-cooled condenser, and this is a test panel board. And this is a conventional collector evaporator. This is a packed bed evaporator, and this is a packed bed evaporator. We are using this. We are heating this packed bed collector tubes to fill this paraffin wax, and we are also tested in the open environment as well as in the controlled environment with the help of solar simulator. And here we have this hot air outlet. This hot air outlet, we have tested this heat pump for how much amount of heat is generated, how much temperature we have obtained. So we have tested this heat pump. That's all. So after we have tested, then we have done after we have tested this one, next stage heat pump we have developed. That heat pump is having a very real. That heat pump is having a good. We developed for exclusively for heating applications like drying and water heating. So that I'm going to project that also. So this is a simple experimental setup I developed exclusively for testing this performance. So for the different configurations. I made this heat pump exclusively to modify this compression cycle with the different modifying the compression cycle, and also I can use this heat storage materials, and I can use some. I'm planning to add some different coated, nano coated observer plates. So this type I'm going to change this modifications in the observer plate to improve the observability. So these experiments I'm going to plan in this experimental setup. And I also developed a solar simulator. So this solar simulator it is tilted parallel to this solar collector because it is tested in both outdoor as well as indoor. So the collector was tilted at a 12-degree inclination according to the latitude of Coimbatore, but it is very difficult to change this position. Because of that, I tilted this solar simulator also. I tilted this solar simulator also equal to that 12-degree parallel to which is parallel to the collector evaporator. So this is a schematic view of this experimental setup. It consists of all these basic components, and it having a side glass. Yes. 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 Any problem?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay.
No problem. Please continue.
Okay, so this is a meteorological station I have used for monitoring the experimental ambient conditions, and this is the cross section of this solar collector. So we have the tubes, we have the tubes here, and it is having the square tube, and this outside this square tube it is filled with the paraffin wax. This paraffin wax along with this graphene. Paraffin wax with graphene heat storage. So this heat storage is capable of retaining the heat for a long duration. So, and it's also possible to allow the heat into the refrigerant. So the main purpose of having this adding the graphene is to increase the thermal conductivity, of the graphene, so that the graphene can so that the PCM can transfer the heat which is absorbed from the ambient and also from the solar sources. It will be transferred to the refrigerant which is passing through this system. And, and so this consists of an airflow arrangement, and we are placing this R-phase meter manometer setup at the exit of the airflow for measuring the airflow rate. And the temperature and pressure at typical locations in the heat pump circuit were measured with the help of pressure gauge and with the help of temperature sensors which were installed at the different locations. As we already here mentioned, we have the digital temperature indicator and we have the board on tube pressure gauges. These pressure gauges can be and pressure gauges and have the watt meter also. This watt meter is also used to measure the instantaneous compressor power consumption, and also for measuring the temperature also we can measure here. And this and we have the temperature controller we are provided in this dashboard, and the temperature control to control this air temperature at the exit of this airflow. And so these are some of the specifications of this particular system. Here we are using a R134 as a refrigerant, whereas in the previous case it is R22. This is a recently developed system. 3 years back the system was developed and it was tested. So here it is having the heating capacity of 3 kilowatt and it's a rated power input of 1020 watts electricity. And these are some of the measuring instruments we are used in this particular experimental setup. Here the temperature sensors PT100 we are using, and here anemometer, vent type anemometer is used for measuring this airflow rate of the air. But for a cup type anemometer is used for measuring the wind velocity. And here this type of anemometer is used for measuring the airflow rate. And the energy meter these are very simple measuring instruments. And so we have carried out this experimental procedure, and initially we have checked this system for leakage using nitrogen gas, and then it is evacuated using a vacuum pump, and then you are charging with 900 grams of refrigerant as per the manufacturer recommendation, Then we have done an experimentation for the very solar radiation between 1,900 watts per meter square, and we can initially we are tested with flat conventional tube, and then we can modify it with packed bed. We've done an experiment sequentially, and we'll observe the readings. And these observed readings have been used for predicting this thermodynamic performance. So these are the energy and exergy performance parameters, and having the maximum uncertainty of plus or minus 6.2 percentage. So these units are in terms of percentage. So these units are in terms of percentage. It's a relative percentage. So so these are the in terms of percentage. And here the solar intensity is one of the major factor which is having more uncertainty. So because of that, the total it will influence the more error in all the predicted values. So these are the experimental observations, and I done this experimentation in the two different climatic conditions because it is but otherwise we need to develop two experimental setups with similar specifications, but it is more expensive, and there is no other option. It is we need to conduct the experiments at the two different days, and we need to identify the days with similar ambient variations with plus or minus 50 watts per meter square. Even if it is more than that, it is okay. It's up to 100 watts per meter square, so we can accept. So there is no other option. Or otherwise, we can go for some simulation studies, and we can go for some artificial neural network simulation or some other simulations, so that we can may have a realistic comparisons. And also we can select the ambient temperature, also another parameter which should have the plus or minus 2 degrees centigrade. And wind velocity, there is no other option. The wind velocity variation should be more than 2 meters per second. So there is no other option. And here the superheating we can observe. So this is a major problem we are facing with the conventional solar heat pumps. So during peak sunshine, the excess of heat observed in the solar collector, the excess heat observed in the solar collector makes the refrigerant to superheat. So the superheating effect, this superheating effect will have some drawbacks. So the superheating effect has increasing this has dropped the volumetric efficiency, has dropped the volumetric efficiency, has dropped the volumetric efficiency of the compressor. If the volumetric efficiency has dropped, automatically, if the volumetric efficiency has dropped, automatically it drops the compressor COP, compressor heating capacity, everything, and compressor heating capacity. So it is very essential to control the superheat within 5 degrees centigrade. Sometimes, so during peak sunshine hours, the superheat may go for up to 8 to 9 degrees centigrade even. So I observed a maximum of 8 degrees centigrade during peak sunshine hours, but sometimes it may go beyond that also up to 9 or 10 degrees centigrade. Some cases. So because of this excess superheat, the volume of vapor will be takes more, and when it is going to the compressor, automatically if you are using a reciprocating compressor, the volumetric efficiency has dropped very significantly. So for that reason, we need to control this temperature within 5 degree. For that, we are using the packed bed collectors. So these are the refrigerant temperature. I observed the typical locations in the refrigeration circuit. This is also refrigerant temperature for the packed bed. And this is a volumetric efficiency. So this is a volumetric efficiency in the case of flat blade. It is reduced up to 83 percentage, roughly sir 83 percentage, whereas it is dropped up to 85%. So 2 to 3 percentage. So roughly I'm telling it's a 2 to 3 percentage improvement in volumetric efficiency is possible when we are adding the heat storage in the solar collector. So that possibility is there. And the refrigerant flow rate can be increased by 10 percentage when comparing to the flat bed collector. So increase in volumetric efficiency by 3 percentage has influenced the refrigerant mass flow rate by 10 percentage. And the power consumption for this case is 1 to 3 percentage higher in the case of conventional solar collectors, whereas packed bed collector has reduced the energy consumption, and also having the heating capacity of up to 10 percentage it is possible to retain. So in this case, after attaining the maximum temperature during the peak sunshine hour, the heating capacity has dropped according to the solar radiation availability. Whereas even though there is a fall of solar radiation observed, but the heating capacity gets increased till 230 up to 230. There will be steep increase in heating capacity. The reason for increase in heating capacity, even though there is a fall in solar radiation, this is because of heat storage in the solar collector, and also it's capable of maintaining higher temperature at the air temperature at the outlet of the condenser. Because of that, it will produce because of that it will produce more heat output. This more heat output makes more heating capacity in the condenser. This also mainly because of the heat storage in the solar collector. Here, the COP was observed to up to 10%, nearly up to 10%, the COP can be improved when comparing to the flat plate collector. In this case, up to 3 o'clock, there will be some steep increase in COP. Whereas here up to 1 o'clock, the COP has dropped according to the solar radiation availability. Whereas in this case, in the case of packed bed solar collector, if you are using packed bed solar collector, but the COP was retained even up to 3 o'clock. So that is the main advantage of using the flat plate collectors. And the solar energy input ratio is also nearly 14% higher when comparing to these flat plate collectors. And this is a thermodynamic exergy assessment. In this case of exergy assessment, the energy losses in the compressor using flat plate collector is roughly 0.5 or 0.15 to 2.1. 0.15 to 2.1 kilowatt higher when comparing to the flat plate collector. Sorry, it's high when comparing to the is lower when comparing to the flat plate collector. So the packed bed collector has a lower exergy destruction in the compressor and has a higher exergy efficiency in the compressor. And in the case of condenser, there is no significant difference was observed. Even the exergy efficiency for both the cases are same, and the exergy destructions in both the cases are same. But it is influencing the expansion valve slightly, but the variation of exergy destruction and exergy efficiency with respect to the solar intensity for both the cases are very minimum. So the variation is very minimum, but the exergy destruction in the flat plate collector, is slightly higher when comparing to the flat plate collector. Whereas exergy efficiency is slightly higher in the case of expansion valve using flat plate, using packed bed collector when compared to the flat plate collectors. And the exergy destructions, it is very interesting one. So this is the main thing we need to focus. The exergy destruction. So this is repeating, I think. So this is exergy destruction in the case of packed bed collector was varied between 0.8 kilowatt and 0.9 kilowatt. The case of flat plate collector is higher in the range of 0.1 kilowatt and 1.2 kilowatt. Okay, so in the case of packed bed collector, the energy loss can be significantly reduced. The energy loss can be significantly reduced when comparing to the flat plate collector, and the exergy efficiency was varied between 17% and 67%. And the case of packed bed collector, and for the case of flat plate collectors, it's varied between 13% and 55%. So there will be significant improvement in exergy efficiency of flat plate collector, of the packed bed collector when comparing to the flat plate collectors. Here, in this case, the maximum exergy loss. So the maximum exergy loss in the system was observed. In this case, also for the packed bed collector, has less exergy destruction, of around 0.1 to roughly 0.2 kilowatt. It's less, and the efficiency is 3 to 6% higher exergy efficiency, and the packed bed collector has a 3 to 6% higher exergy efficiency. And this is a relative exergy destruction observed in various components. And here, in this case, the flat plate collector is having a more exergy destruction in the compressor and having the more exergy destruction and more relative exergy destruction in the case of compressor. So the flat plate collector is having a more relative exergy destruction in the compressor, whereas all other components having less. But the relative exergy destruction in the case of flat plate collector is more in the case of packed bed collector. So there is a difference. And the major outcomes of this one is the volumetric efficiency can be improved by 3% when comparing to the flat plate collector. And the refrigerant mass flow rate can be increased by 10% as I mentioned here. And the condensate pressure can be was reduced in the range between 0.2 bar and 1 bar. So the condenser pressure can be reduced. That's the main advantage. And the condenser heat output using packed bed collector is 10.8% higher when comparing to the flat plate collector. And the compressor power consumption can be reduced by 3%. That is also possible. And the COP can be improved up to 10.3%. And the energy losses in various components of the system can be considerably reduced in the case of direct expansion solar system heat pumps using packed bed collectors, collector evaporator, and uh, moreover, the sizing of this solar flat plate collectors using a packed bed observer is very essential, which needs further research exploration. And this is the my recently developed this experimental setup, so which needs to be carried out further research activity in this particular this one. And this arrangement is slightly different when comparing to the previous case. This is the thermos here. This is a serpentine arrangement. This is a serpentine arrangement. This serpentine arrangement is having more pressure drop, having more pressure drop when comparing to the thermosiphon. Here, because of more lengthy, because of very lengthier pipe, evaporator pipe, so having the more friction loss and having the more pipe bends, so this may lead to more pressure drop. But we have developed recently, we have developed this experimental setup based on the research outcomes on the previous study, and I am going to test this one. So I need to fill the paraffin wax in these tubes, paraffin wax filled with the graphene hybrid PCM to increase the thermal conductivity of the paraffin wax. We are added the graphene also, and we are going to test this performance. We are going to test this performance. So here we have developed a drying chamber also. This is a small drying chamber we are developed for making. We are planning to carry out some experiments for the deep bed drying. So I'm planning to have a deep bed drying for some grinds or some powdery materials like that. And we also planning to test this same heat pump for water heating also. So for water heating also, we are having the nearly 100 liters water storage capacity. Water tank is also available with us. So this experimental setup, we are planning to carry it out to the next stage. And now I'm introducing another concept called heat pump assisted solar still. So we are developed a solar still long back. For 5 years back, we have done this one, and we are based on this. We have done some numerical simulation work, and we also now we are one of my student is doing and the solar still performance enhancement of this one. So this is a very interesting one, and here in this solar still we are having the maximum productivity of around 2 to 3 liters. So 3 liters normal solar still will achieve. But some performance enhancement studies has been done with the help of heat storage materials like paraffin wax, some regenerative materials like jute cloth, cotton cloth, and everything they've done. So many research activities have been done in the solar still, because even though it is a passive equipment, the very large number of experimental research exploration has been made in this solar still. But I tried with some. Why not we can integrate with the heat pump? So heat pump is one of the very. Then now the heat pump, now the solar still will become active solar still. We are using this heat pump, and this heat pump, it consists of a compression refrigeration cycle. Inside this compression refrigeration, inside the solar still, we have this evaporator. This evaporator is placed at the back side of this solar still, and this is a condenser. this condenser has preheat the water. This condenser has preheat the water before entering into the still basin of a solar still. And we have tried to add some heat storage materials like brick and concrete blocks also we have tried. But we are initially we done with some preliminary experiments. So, and here this is cell and coil condenser. In the cell and coil condenser preheat the water before entering into the basin of a solar still. And this condenser, this evaporator will as make the more dehumidification effect, and this dehumidified water is collected separately. The water vapor which is condensed over the bottom surface of the glass is collected separately. So this will be collected as a glass yield. This is collected as a heat pump yield, and both will be measured together as a cumulative yield. Okay, so the temperature at the temperature of the water, temperature of the air water mixture, temperature of the evaporator, temperature of the this condenser water and glass and everything is to be monitored and will be connected to a digital temperature indicator. And we have this solar intensity measurement using the solar intensity meter, wind velocity using the Kepler anemometer, and everything were measured, and we have done some preliminary experimentation. I am going to project only the productivity of this solar still only. And this is the productivity of the solar still we are observed. So nearly 12 to 13 liters, 13 liters of water is possible to obtain with the help of heat pump assisted solar still, whereas only 2 to 3 liters, only maximum 3 liters is possible to achieve it in the conventional max, not even 3. So around 2.5 liters is possible to achieve it in the case of conventional solar still. But even up to 6 o'clock, we may have up to 6 o'clock, we may have this productivity is expected. After this, because of some effect of heat storage, they may have another 2 hours, they may have a minor uh, uh, productivity was observed, whereas maximum the heat pump has produced the heat pump productivity has the maximum yield up to 12.5 liters. The main purpose of adding the heat pump is to preheat the water. At the same time, we can regenerate the heat because lot of latent heat is released during the condensation of water vapor. For example, if the 12, for example, if it's possible to produce 12 liters of water means it's possible to 12 into 2250 because 2250 kilojoules per kg of latent heat is released for 2250 kilojoules of heat is released during the condensation of 1 kg of water vapor. So if you are producing 12 kg of water vapor, that much amount of heat is available inside the solar still during the condensation. So that heat can be regenerated. That heat can be regenerated to the heat pump to preheat the water. So that is the main concept of introducing the heat pump, especially for solar still applications. So this in the solar still we can achieve up to 13 liters. Up to 13 liters we are achieved. And recently we are it's possible to achieve more than that. Even if we are using a very good heat pump, we can give we are reducing the heat loss. Then it is possible to produce more than that. That up to even up to 17, 18 liters, it's possible to achieve. So such type of research investigations I'm planning to explore. Even we can use some latent heat storage material at the bottom side of this solar still, so that it is possible to retain the heat for more duration, and also to even for more than 3 to 4 hours, it is possible to retain the latent heat. So that possibility is there. So such research investigations I'm exploring in my with the help of my PhD students. And this is the another type of very small prototype heat pump water heaters I developed for exclusively for a small water heat, small domestic applications. So this is the 40 liters heat pump water heaters I developed long back. So 10 years back, I developed with the help of my undergraduate students. So to develop a portable heat pump water heater for domestic applications. That too with the help of solar. So I developed and it was tested. So it was tested. It's good. It's running good, and it is producing a 40 liters of heat output. Sorry, 40 liters of hot water output, And this hot water output, this system is running for a period of 3 to 4 hours during a peak sunshine hours alone. So morning 11 o'clock to evening, morning to 11 to 3 o'clock. So they will produce very good hot water of around 40 to 50, 40 liters at a temperature of 55 degrees centigrade. So it's a very small portable, it's a 250 watts compressor I developed and I made it this one. And why not we can introduce a heat pump with the help of heat storage. So for that reason, I developed this packed bed collector, and I also tested this also as another this one. So this work is under progress. So it is not completed, and this work is also under progress with the help of heat pump water heaters. So this is a 250 watts compressor. So this is a 50 liters size, I think. Okay. So it's a small capacity 250 watts compressor and having cylinder coil condensers. And these are some of the recently developed heat pump water heaters exclusively for domestic applications. So this is I have developed this is a 100 liters water tank, and it consists of these pressure gauges and the temperature cutouts, and have these more controls we are using. And this is a conventional reciprocating compressor. We have the evaporator at the back side, and this is meant for producing the hot water of 55 to 60 degrees centigrade at of the roughly 500 to 750 liters of hot water output. So 500 to 750 liters of hot water output is possible to produce in this heat pump per day at a temperature of at the temperature of 55 to 60 degrees centigrade. It is possible to achieve. So such advantage is available with this heat pump. This heat pump I am going to tested in the tested in for a this heat pump I have tested for some domestic water heating domestic hot water applications I have developed, and I have tested for one small family, and I have installed another another this is one heat pump water heater I developed, and I have installed in on a residence in Coimbatore, and it was successfully is working for the past 6 months. It was successfully working, and here also we are having some controls we are provided, and the cost of this heat pump is around 50,000 rupees. But this heat pump is assisted along with the solar water heater. In the solar, because in the yearly for 40 to 50 days, the solar hot water demand is not fulfilled by the solar water heaters. So during that time, we can run. Moreover, if the solar water heater is a capacity of 100 liters, suppose if the demand is more than 100 liters for a few days in a year, and that time we need to go for a resistance water heater. So to reduce the use of resistance water heater, we can go for a heat pump water heaters. These heat pump water heaters are capable of producing the high amount of hot water with minimum electricity consumption. And this is the another research development we had made it at NIT Calicut. And this is the PVT collectors, and these PVT collectors, each PVT collector is capable of producing 350 watts of electricity, and totally this will produce 1 kilowatt of electricity output. And this 1 kilowatt of electricity output generated is connected to the grid, and from the grid we can tap the electricity. So these three panels will produce the roughly it will produce around 6 units of electricity per day, whereas this heat pump is consuming only 3 units of electricity. So nearly 50% of electricity excess electricity is generated in this heat pump, and this 50% excess electricity is given to the grid, and we are running this heat pump with free of electricity and with three electricity output as benefit, and we are producing the hot water, and we are producing the hot water of 150 liters at the rate of 60 degree centigrade. At the rate of 60 degrees centigrade, even we can produce more than this. Even we can produce 500 liters, up to 500 liters hot water output is possible to produce. Here we are the main novelty of this research topic. This is funded by Department of Science and Technology for the cost of 33 lakhs. So, and this is the variable frequency drive compressor. So this is the inverter compressor we are used in this particular research project. The main purpose is to, according to the fluctuations in the PV output, the variable frequency drive compressor can modulate the speed according to the PV power output. So that is the main novelty of this research project. And we are made the comparison between the electrical resistance water heaters and heat pump water heaters. This is for making the roughly I'm telling about for talking about 100 liters of hot water requirement. If you are using an electrical resistance water heater, roughly it comes around 3.5 units of electricity, whereas 1 unit of electricity is sufficient if you are using a heat pump for a temperature of 60 degree. So it is very important. The temperature of 60 degree, for a temperature of 60 degree and for the capacity of 100 liters, the electric resistance water heater will consume 3.5 units of electricity, whereas heat pump water heater is consuming only 1 kilowatt of electricity. Because of this higher energy consumption, during its lifetime, it will produce roughly 23 to 24 kg, 24,000 kg of carbon dioxide emission is there, whereas carbon dioxide emission is very minimum in the case of 7 to 8 kg of carbon dioxide per unit. So if you are using a thermal power plant, for generating electricity, that carbon dioxide emission factor is 0.9, 0.92, and it will be very lower when comparing to the electric resistance water heater. The heat pump water heaters are an energy efficient and is capable of producing very low uh, uh, environmental impact when comparing to this electric resistance water heating systems. And these are some of the refrigerant options we are recommended for heat pumps. And for a high temperature heat pumps, we may go for 290 was identified as a good option because of its low global warming of around 20. And R32 was also identified, but R32 is not listed here. But R32 is also good option, but it is having a low critical temperature of around 72 degrees centigrade. But carbon dioxide is also good, but it is not suitable for a tropical climatic conditions like India, because our in India we have the temperature of around during summer we may have a temperature of around 45 to 45 degrees centigrade. So during that time, even R32 cannot be used. But I don't know how most of the air conditioning manufacturers are recommending R32 as a refrigerant for air conditioners. I don't know how far it will become successful. I don't know, but because during a summer in Delhi, they may have a maximum temperature that may reach around 49 or something. Sometimes they have reached 50. So during 50 degrees centigrade means is very critical. At the time we need more air conditioners. If you at the time if you're using air conditioners like using R32, then that will become having more performance degradation. But we cannot observe such type of problems when uh, directly. So, and also 410A is also having a such type of problems, but it's totally it is hidden. But nobody is aware of that one because, but we don't know how much electricity is consuming, how the power system is working. Just we can switch on the electricity, switch on the system, and then we'll feel the cooling. That's all. But we don't know what's happening inside. But we are not aware. But such the refrigerants in current use, they're having a lot of drawbacks. So whereas a 290 is another good option, but it's having a very good low global warming. And 134A is also a good option, but it is having high. So still there is no vision. So still there is no vision which working fluid is recommended for a heat pump, which refrigerant is recommended for heat pump water heaters or for the different applications. It's not there is no clear vision, but still the industry is struggling with uh, to go for a new environmental friendly refrigerants. So these are my future research scope I identified, and because of lack of time, I'm I show this slide, and I'm not going to detail this one because I share this slide to the organizer, so they will forward this information to you. And also I have these are my major references, and these are my major publications I made out of this activities. So in this paper, if you are referring these two papers, I made a complete consultation of the research and developments been made in solar assisted heat pumps during the year till 2017. After 2017, I don't know, but till 2017, I made a comprehensive review of the research and developments made in the field of solar assisted heat pumps. I also shared these two papers to you. These two papers, if you are interested, you can go refer. You can refer these two papers to get more idea about research and developments of solar assisted heat pumps. And and recently, I also wrote one more paper on the PVT collectors in associate with the DST project with the thermal analysis of heat pumps using photovoltaic thermal collectors review. So that is also on is a new review paper I have published recently. And so these are my major information I have shared related to the heat pumps. Because of lack of time, because 11:30 we have another session, so I wind up this session, but with some queries, any. Even Raj?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The participants can ask the questions now, either through direct or through chat box.
Because of lack of time, I wind up. So due to network problem also. So Samuel Nalluri. So what are the main reasons for performance degradation in transcritical heat pump at high temperature applications? So the case if you are using carbon dioxide is having a very low critical temperature. If there we have to identify a refrigerant which should have very high critical temperature for heating applications. Carbon dioxide is having a critical temperature of around 30 degrees centigrade. Suppose if it is used for a heating applications having a very high temperature, that means automatically it will have a more performance degradation. What I suggest is it is better to operate a heat pump far below the critical temperature to achieve better performance. So that is the main thing. And not only in a transcritical, I mean any heat pump, which is which using the working fluid, that heat pump that working fluid, it should have very high critical temperature. Okay, so if your low critical temperature means, then we can go for a transcritical cycle, then the performance degradation will be more. Any other questions? Even Raj sir?
Participants, any other questions? Okay, then, sir, thank you very much for handling the wonderful session for the past 1.5 hours on solar assisted heat pumps for drying and water heating applications. So, in the 5 days FDP program, we have 2 sessions with Professor Mohan Raj sir. So, Monday he had taken a session about solar hair heaters, and today he had taken the session about solar heat pump. Both the sessions were very informative. So, really, we learned a lot of things. We got a lot of knowledge related to solar hair heaters as well as a solar assisted heat pump. So yesterday afternoon session, we have a session. We got a session with Dr. Erzon. Okay. So that Dr. Erzon is the research collaborator for our Mohan Raj sir, professor. So he is the person who started the research of solar assisted heat pump at Al Farabi National Kazakh University. So they are the group working together. Even Erzan sir has already mentioned in the PPT and also in the acknowledgement. So we are very happy for you to be here, sir. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your valuable sessions.
Thank you.
So even though in spite of your busy schedules through online classes and all that, so you altered those things and you had spent your time here. So we expect your support and cooperation in the upcoming days in the Jyoti too. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Thank you.
So participants, next session will be 11:30. So please join at 11:30. Dr. Rajshekhar from Vellore Institute of Technology will handle a session about solar hybrid energy systems. Thank you.